So today is for the woman that wants to go home full time. Maybe you're working full time, maybe you're working part time, maybe you're working as needed. As an employee, maybe it's your own business. But today I wanted to talk directly to the woman that wants to go home full time. I went home full time, not necessarily Not necessarily on purpose or with a plan or even too happy about it because I really struggled with work identity and wife, mom, homemaker identity. I really struggled thinking that I needed to have a job outside of the home in order to have any value to myself. I thought that value for me or anyone in our culture meant if you don't have a job, then you're not contributing. And so I kind of took on the whole mentality of I need to do something. I needed to make money in some way. And, one of the things I kept thinking is I have to make my homestead make money because I went home with the 7 kids. I went home full time when they were 3, and I always thought I had to somehow make the homestead make money so that I could help. Not that that is wrong, but that was like half of my thinking almost. And now that those kids are all grown, they're all adults, I'm able to kind of reflect a little bit more, even over time. I think we all reflect. Well, maybe we over reflect, but just thinking on those years, what I could tell myself now, looking back on that, that's just a few things if I can get across to anyone that needs to hear it or wants to hear it. And that is, you only get one chance. If you have children at home, you only have a certain amount of time before they are not going to be your ultimate responsibility. They are going to end up being their own responsibility when they're grown and have to take on the whole adult role. And even if they're at home and you still kind of share a responsibility because maybe they're 18 and at home and you still are the lady of the house, they still have to be responsible for their decisions. And also, it is your house. If they're in it, of course, you're going to have your own house rules, right? But to think on what I would have told myself at that point in time, if I think back at where we were in our journey of marriage and parenting and work, and we made ends meet. Okay. We made ends meet with my husband's work. And I thought for those 3 years that once the triplets were born, that I needed to contribute somehow because, why should it only be him making the money? And it should be me. I have a degree. I'm socially responsible to, use this degree and do what I can. But that's really kind of a lie. And I think, in a way, if I were to word it in a way that I could maybe get a little more invisible, is the devil is in the distraction. I'm just going to say the whole thing and then I'll go into my example. So the devil is in the distraction, and the distraction leads to division, and the division leads to destruction. And that is exactly what he wants. If I were to look back now on what I was doing, I would say, go. The job does not matter. The family matters. My job at home matters. The job that I had at a hospital does not matter as much as my family matters. And that is where I would, at this point in my life, fully just tell myself, stop thinking I needed to work. We could make it work. We did make it work. Stop thinking I had to make money in order to feel like I was contributing to my family and the society itself. And I think that really, even that thought is a distraction, even though I wasn't working outside of the home, but I thought I needed to work. I mean, even just that thought is a distraction. It is a distraction from what my job was right in front of me. And that was to be a good wife and to be a good mom and to raise that family in a godly way and do the best I could with what I had where I was. And, during all that time, yeah, I guess the devil won in the distraction, even though I didn't go and get, a outside of the home job again. But I could have done a better job with my role at home had I not been distracting myself thinking that. So it's probably one of the biggest things that a homemaker, a stay at home mom, a homeschooling mom has running through their head is that what they do is not as valuable as having a job and earning a paycheck or having some sort of initials or status or whatever. And it's almost like a daily thing. You have to fight this daily because it is a lie. I'm here to tell you it is probably one of the biggest lies. And just stop thinking it. Stop thinking that your home role isn't as important. It is the most important role you will ever, ever, one more time, ever have. And so many of us give that role away to other people. We give it to daycares, we give it to schools, we give it to multiple, overwhelming extracurricular activity people. We give away the time that we could have had with our own children, with our husbands. We give it all away because we think that is what we're supposed to do. And we're not. We are not supposed to be at work more than we're at home. We are not supposed to only see our kids on the weekends, if that. Because if you work weekends, guess what? You ain't gonna see them then neither. We are not supposed to only see our kids when we put them to bed. We are not supposed to only have date nights whenever. We are not supposed to have anyone else more important, anyone, anything at all more important than our personal role. And our personal role at home, that is, I can't explain how important it is. I have a quote on a print behind me, and it's by Mother Teresa. And it states, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. And I heard that actually from a gal I was in a class with one time. And it just like struck me. It's like, no way, I've never heard that before. I've heard a lot of quotes. I personally like a lot of quotes. Sometimes they're just like the little pick me ups you need. But I'd never heard that one before. And I loved it. And I just so happened to find just a little cheap print. And when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect timing. And I just bought it and then put it in my office area. And I can't agree more with it. I mean, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. I mean, just think about that, you know? I mean, I remember in school, now my mom worked a lot. She had some times of like single income that she was making. Um, and so she did the best she could and she did a great job. And I remember I was public schooled the whole time, the whole way. And I always wanted to be at home. I always wanted my mom. I just wanted to be at home. And when I was growing up, homeschool was kind of like the out. And even when I was homeschooling, it wasn't like the in yet either. But I think since 2020, it's definitely turned a little into the go zone for sure. But anyway, so I was public schooled the whole way. And so many times, I cannot tell you how many times, so many times, I just wanted to be at home with my mom. Like, why can't I be at home with you and do what you do? Why can't I learn at home? And there were so many things that, you know, you can learn from life itself. And that's, one of the homeschool things. I'll do another one on that. So be on the listen for that. So being public schooled, you spend a lot of time, or even private school, really, but I was public schooled. You spend a lot of time in school. And for me, it was all government schools. And it was, be here at this time, you're released at this time, you're on a bus for another hour, before school and after school. And then I was a latchkey kid. And then it was like however long until, your mom gets home. But you're in school more than you're anywhere else. And that becomes almost like the kid's parent. It just becomes who they are most responsible to, I guess, because it is such a huge part of their life. And that's what it was for me. And just to give some perspective, a lot of times you can go do a survey or something, ask some friends of yours. Like, there are teachers that become like a surrogate parent. And those teachers, I think it's quite funny because I'm getting into this and I don't even want to get into the school thing because I want to get into a homeschool thing later. But there are teachers, I guess most of them, honestly, they always call their students my kids. That always bothers me because they're not their kids. Guess what? They go home and they go to their parents, hopefully. And my point being, school is not their parents. The school gets most of that kid's time or kids multiple. And that isn't how it was supposed to be. Our role as women was originally to be the helper and the homemaker, no matter how you slice it. I guess you can just go back to the beginning of time and read it yourself. Because if someone, and this is me included, I would just get mad sometimes because it was so hard. Being a full time, and I'll dive into this for a second, being a full time stay at home mom, homemaker, homesteader, even, and homeschooler was the hardest thing I ever, 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 I'll even do another one, ever did because there was never off. It was always my job, and it is always my job. But the bad days could be really bad. The good days made it all better. But in my mind, I did not view it the way I grew to understand it. One thing about being a full-time wife, full-time homemaker, full-time stay-at-home mom, full-time stay-at-home mom, homeschooler, homesteader, any of those, is I will have to say my opinion on this would be not only is it the hardest, it is also the most rewarding because your job, it will give you money, it will give you status, it will give you initials, it will get you notoriety, maybe. It will get you all of the worldly things. But taking on your home role full time and trying to be the best godly wife and mom that you can is the most and the highest reward and status you could be. Although we don't think it when we're in the middle of it. Because so many times, at least for me, I did not, my day, we didn't have all the internet, raising our kids. There was internet, yes. I'm not saying it's that far out, but we didn't have the social media. Even if there was, we were in the woods. We didn't have reception. Um, and even now, I don't even want it because it's a distraction. And distractions, of course, will lead to division, and division leads to destruction. And I don't want that. I don't want it today. And now I acknowledge it. Like I know it is a problem. I know it is on purpose. I know it's part of the, plan of destroying the family. And I consciously fight against it. And if I could be of any encouragement for, yes, the full-time stay-at-home moms now and the homemakers, homesteaders, the wives that want to be the best godly woman and taking on their role at home, I want to be here for you. I want to be here for them because it is like you're at war. If I'm going to put it blunt, you are at war. And sometimes you can tell, and other times it's subtle. And you need encouragement. You need community. You need like-minded women. And that is one of the things I've learned over time is community, you need it. You don't just want it, you need it. And the full-time ladies that, that are not working, you're in the trenches. You 100% are in the trenches. And I have been there and I have the battle wounds and I can tell you, you're never out of, this position of responsibility and your home role. But especially if you have children at home, you absolutely, you need your community because that is what we're for. We are for each other. We are here. We are co-workers in this battle. We are meant to take on this role as a profession. We are not meant to take on our home role as a side hustle. I mean, if you think about that, if you cannot be at home and you want to be at home, and when I mean you cannot be at home, I mean like truly, maybe you are like a single mom or something, and you absolutely cannot do it, and there's no help for the kids. But, when there is a will and you really, really want it, somehow we find a way. Somehow. And so if there is any woman out there who wants to be home full time, maybe you just dream of it and you have in your mind's eye what you want it to be, how you want to feel, what you want your house to look like. If you have children, maybe you want to homeschool, maybe not, but A lot of times, especially since 2020, of course, we have this ideal of being the full-time stay-at-home mom, homemaker, homesteader, homeschooler. I'm with you. Let's make it happen because that is the absolute most impactful, gratifying job you can ever do. And no, it doesn't come with pats on the back all the time. No, it doesn't come with a paycheck. No, it doesn't even come with thank yous a lot of times because that is part of the job. And the one thing I can say is, a lot of times we think of jobs as like the payoff for that is a paycheck, right? And we don't always see a payoff all the time, you know, in being a stay-at-home homemaker, stay-at-home mom. We wish we did. Somehow we wish we knew that we were recognized or, maybe appreciated. But sometimes when I would go down that rabbit hole of negativeness, I was losing vision of the mission. And the mission wasn't about my recognition. My mission was to do the best I could in what I consider a profession. And it's actually in the States, it's still a legal profession. You look up, the little demographic things, and homemaker, guess what? It's on there. It's a profession. Who would have thunk? So I would lose the vision. I would lose the sight of what the mission was in the first place because I would get distracted by what the world thought was important or valuable. And that's the huge shame because, you know, as soon as the family was divided within history, the value of the family actually went down within the family. Sure, we've had problems forever, but they got really bad in history once we divided the family. Oh, I guess I could call out women. Once women didn't see the value of their role at home and didn't want to do it anymore, then there went our families. And the family is, gosh, I mean, you could just go on up from the family to the community, to the city, to the state, to the country, to the world. You trace it all back to the family. It's sad that it's come that far, but I don't want those women that are called and fill that pool inside their heart to be home full-time homemaker, full-time stay-at-home mom, full-time homeschooler, to not have somebody there for you. I want to make sure that I get the opportunity to tell you it matters. And it matters so much more than you think. I mean, it's just amazing to think what you could do from actually taking on that home role serious. So, two things I want to touch on as far as this topic goes. Being home full time, okay? One is maybe you're not at home and you want to be. And then the other thing is the first step for it that I would recommend. So, number one, I would say if you are at work, if you have a job outside of the house and you want to be home so bad, down here in the South, we say You want something so bad you could taste it. You want to be home so bad, and that is where you're drawn to. You know, that's what is in us. As women, we were created with those emotions to want to be with that family. We want to do a good job and we want to be there for those kids because gosh, you cannot explain the connection. I can't even put it to words. The connection between a mom and her children. And when someone recognizes the importance of it and recognizes the emotion of it, and then it's the other emotion. It's like, what in the world am I doing working? Here goes my, little Johnny going to daycare and I'm going to work and I'm working this many hours and basically I am paying for childcare and gas money. And what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And that's a really good question. Don't negate those questions because they're important. You have that feeling in you to be a full time wife, a full time mom, take care of your home for a reason. Like, it's not unimportant. It's so funny how we tend to just brush it off. And I think because, at least for me, one of the things I always thought of was, well, everybody's a mom. What's so special about me being a mom? You know, maybe this job is special and that would, be my prize. But it was so the opposite. So if you are at work and you feel that pull to be, you know, at home full time, here's what I would do if I were you. I did do this. Granted, it's been a long time ago, but I did do it. So, number one, talk to your husband. All women are different and how we communicate. Um, I'm an overthinker, so I will go through all kinds of conversations in my head before they even happen, after they happen, what I should have said, what I shouldn't have said, whatever. But just if you do that in your head, just stop. Just stop and have a true conversation with your husband. Get your words together. It's almost like you want to present a case, right? And if you really feel pulled and drawn and called to be at home, it is your calling. That is where you are supposed to be. So pull together your words so that you can maybe talk about it simply. Don't make it complicated. Um, Maybe just say that. I want to be home full time. How can we work this out so that I can be at home full time for this family? And all husbands are different, just like all wives are different. Everybody's different. I'm telling you, identical twins are even different. So just being able to start by having a conversation. Does that mean your husband's going to just say, okay, go home? That's fine. No, not necessarily. Maybe he's used to certain things happening. Maybe he's just used to things having two incomes and, maybe your debt load is pretty high and, that would make him nervous on, okay, well, how are we going to make it? And maybe that is where you can have your information if you really, really, really want to go home. Now, that doesn't mean you just say, well, I'm going to do it anyway. You should both be in agreement on it. You need to both be in agreement or you're going to end up having some resentment. And resentment is going to lead, no matter what. If you are wanting to go home and you're not in agreement, don't start resenting him. Start praying for him. Start praying for you. Start praying for your family. Start praying for the situation. Let the doors open for it. I'm telling you, those things can and do happen. So just have a simple conversation about what you are feeling inside. I don't mean all the emotions. Not most guys don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but just have the simple conversation of what you want, which in this case would be, I want to be home full time. I want to take this on. I don't want to go to work. I want to make the most of my family. I want to make the most of my home. I want to make the most of my opportunity that I have. And if you can do that, just keep it simple. Okay. And the next thing, as far as having the initial conversation, is depending on your answer and what came through that, maybe you didn't get an answer between the two of you. Maybe you did not have some, okay, well, this is our plan. So if you did not, then go ahead and see about making an appointment to have another meeting about it. And maybe in the meantime, while you're still trying to get home full time, maybe you are working on the things that make him uncomfortable. Maybe it's that, that we spend too much money getting our nails done, or I don't know. I don't really get my nails done, but whatever. Um, maybe it's the shopping thing. Who knows what it is? That is something maybe to approach in the initial conversation. If he is not in agreement with it, how? Like, how could you make it happen? What would make him more comfortable? Um, what is standing in his way of agreeing with that? And then just work from there and just make another little appointment. Just say, okay, yeah, have some coffee, have some tea. Maybe you can go somewhere else for it. I wouldn't do it right before bed, as far as talking about it. But definitely when it's a good opportunity. You know how to do that. I don't have to explain that. You don't want a stressful day. You want a solid platform of not a bad day, right? You want no hyper emotions on either side going into this conversation because you want it neutral. That being said, maybe schedule another little meeting. Maybe he is in agreement. Just say he is, like, okay, all right, babe, let's see if we can do this. Here's what I would do. Maybe there's 3 things. Make a deadline. Pick a date and go with it. It's almost like you're not quitting. And this is one thing I do think of as far as being a full-time homemaker is, if you haven't picked up on it, it is a profession. You are not quitting your job. You are changing professions. You're not quitting work. You're actually taking on the hardest work there is. And it's understated how important that is. So I would say make a deadline and go with it and make the most of it. And of course, you can be planning and dreaming and all that kind of stuff in the meantime. And after, you're going to have struggles. Yes, we would no matter what, but maybe you have a celebration. Maybe it is like homemaker party. Like some people will have, like when you move, you have a housewarming party. Maybe you have a homemaker. Why not? You're changing professions. Here's your permission from Neva. Go have a homemaker celebration from me. There you go. And if you do it, send me an email and tell me when your date is and send me a picture. I want to see your celebration. But in case you're on the fence, maybe it's not like a quick deadline. Here's the other caveat to that deadline. Maybe you can do, this is what I did, not 100% intentionally, but kind of. And I weaned myself off of working. So basically, I just kind of worked less and less and less. And then it was like, yeah, I'm not going in. I'm good. This is where I need to be. And I never went back. And here's the thing. Oh my gosh. When your kids are grown, guess what you could still do? you could still go find a job. Guess what I can't do? I can't raise my family. I cannot go back in time and raise my family. And that's one thing that I would love for everyone to get is success in the job world is kind of like paycheck status, initials, all that fun stuff. Success in being a full-time godly wife, mom, all of it is not quitting. I mean, that took me the whole time to figure out. It was not quitting because I wanted to quit so many times. I wanted to just throw in the towel and just say, oh my gosh, I don't think I'm doing any good. I don't think I'm making any progress. I don't think I'm helping anybody. Um, at least if I went and got a job, I could at least get, some pats on the back and a little paycheck, but I didn't. I didn't do it. I would just stay the course and get over my little fit. I'd have my little tantrum and I would get back to work because that's what it is. It's work. And unfortunately, we're not trained for that work. We're trained to get a job. We're trained for that work, but not the most important work, which is at home. And so that's what I did. I weaned myself off of work and I didn't go back. And I don't regret it. I would have so regretted not going home full time. I think God did that to me on purpose because I was just juggling everything. And you never don't juggle stuff because that's called life. But I had 7 kids, 7 and under, that it's almost like He just said, here you go. Now you almost don't have a choice. And it was like I was so overwhelmed. It was like a unanimous decision and an overwhelming emotional pull that I wanted to be there for my family. I wanted to do that, but I was trying to do both, and I did neither one well when I was doing both. And sure, some people might be able to juggle both worlds. I was not able to. And I think it would have been a distraction. And it was a distraction when I was trying to do both work outside of the home and be a full time mom and wife, which is, I differ in a lot of people. It doesn't matter. I'll go ahead and say it. If you are a full time stay at home mom, stay at home wife, homemaker, and you don't work outside of the home, here is your title. You truly are a full-time homemaker. If you do work outside of the home, unfortunately, you're part-time. So I had so many times during, maybe those 3 years, I was part-time. I made things so much harder on myself. And if I would have gone all in and taken it on truly full-time and just stopped thinking that I needed to work in order to have value or think I contributed or, didn't waste an education, all that kind of stuff. Education is not bad. It is just not the most important. And looking back on it, I definitely do not regret going home full time. I would have regretted staying in a job. So the only other thought on this, that besides talking to your husband, if you feel called to be at home full time, is yes, you're going to have a conversation because it's not just you in the relationship, right? It's a marriage. That's a deal. If you are going home full time, here is the one thing that if I got nothing else across to anyone about anything with your home role being the most important, here's what it would be. I want to get across that you need to manage your mindset. You need to view your role at home, as your profession that I was talking about. Do not think of it as a side hustle. Do not think of it as unimportant. Do not think of it as no value or anyone else can do it. No one can take your place. We hear that, right? No one in the world, even identical. I have identical twins too. The identical twin cannot take the other identical twin's place either. They're identical. They share the same DNA. They look identical, but they are different. They are two different human beings, and they have two different personalities, and no one, not even their identical twin, can take their place. No one can take your place, but there is always someone that can take your position. And in your home, no one can take your place. At a job, anyone can take that position. I'm not saying you're not special. I'm saying you are more important at home than you are at a job. And I'm sure there are a lot of jobs and workplaces that would argue about it. We're family and we're all. No, you're not. You might be acquaintances. And this is something with kids. If you want to just tell this to like older kids, your work people, you might become friends over time, but they will never be your family unless you marry them. But that is the difference. Yes, you're going to have special friends and extra, best friends. Your inner circle is going to be small if you're anywhere like me. And for me, my inner circle, it's really small. So I want the women that want to go home, that are called to be at home full time, stay at home wife, stay at home mom, homesteader, homemaker, homeschooler, all of it. If you feel your purpose is at home, then it is your job to feel that purpose. If you feel it in your heart, in your gut, then between you and your husband, it's your job to do your best to be able to fulfill that purpose. I am not saying it's going to be easy. As a matter of fact, it's going to be hard. It is going to be the hardest thing you'll do. But in the end, when you can look back and know that you did the best you could, you fought the fight, and you didn't quit, oh my God, you would be almost invincible. That is a rock solid woman right there. Totally. And honestly, the more kids you have, the harder core you are. I mean, those are the women that just rock being awesome. So here, I just want to recap this. Maybe I'm thinking of this as like a rally cry, a war cry, battle cry, whatever you call it. But if you feel called to be home, then I want you to understand. I want you to take this to heart. Try to figure out how to fulfill that purpose. Talk to your husband. Make a meeting about it. Try to see how you can do it. This is if you're working outside the home and you want to go home full time. If you are home full time and you need a little kick in the pants or the skirt, I want you to take on this mindset. Try this for a week. If you can take the mindset on as your role at home being your profession, do everything you can to treat it and think of it as a profession. You are taking this on as your job. It is your job. It is no one else's job. It is no one else's business. It is your business. I want you to view your role at home as your profession. Just try it for 1 week and let me know. So those are the two things. If I could tell you two things. One would be maybe if you are working and you want to go home full time, have that meeting, make a deadline if you can, and send me your deadline. I will email you back and ask you about your deadline. But don't give me a deadline if you have not had full agreement between you and your husband. This is not, I'm going to do it anyway. This needs to be a group that you're one, right? So you need to come to full one agreement on this. So if you are in full agreement, you and your husband, send me your deadline. I'll email you on that deadline. And I want a picture of your homemaker celebration full time. If you are full time already at home, I want you to take 1 week and every day I want you to think of that role as your profession and let me know if anything in you or outside of you, maybe someone else has mentioned something. Let me know how that affects you. Just take that on 1 week. Do that and let me know. Anyway, so that's it for today, and I will talk to you next time.